Now would you look at this? We have a DCS battery from Australia. And these have been creating quite the buzz on the internet because a YouTuber is actually getting sued for reviewing these. And I'm not going to comment on the case or the politics of Australia and their crazy legislation and how no one in Australia seems to do anything about it. But what I can do is I can open up this battery and see what's inside. And we can do some basic testing because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your opinion is or what your government says. What matters is the test data, the objective facts that we can reproduce anywhere on the globe. And luckily in America, they actually favor if you're honest and you tell the truth. So unlike in Australia, we shouldn't have any issue here. But I am documenting every step of the capacity test and everything else. So first, let's talk about what they claim that this battery can do. So first, this is a 12 volt, 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. Now, first claim is it has lithium cranking amps because this is designed to start an internal combustion engine. So instead of saying cold cranking amps or CCA, they're calling it LCA. And it states that it can provide 1000 amps. So that's quite significant. Next line is hilarious. Lithium iron phosphate cyclic battery cell technology? That was a whole lot of words telling us absolutely nothing. Next time, just say lithium iron phosphate battery. Next line is the voltage range, which is very useful, especially for setting the absorption on your battery chargers. Next is hyperactive cell balancing system. So we'll figure out what this is. I'm thinking it's an active balancer, but we will not find out until we open it up. Next is BMS, battery management system. No freaking duh. Every single battery on the market has this. I don't think it's necessary to spell this out for customers. Next, continuous 100 amp charge and 190 amp discharge. So that's what we're going to be testing today. And the last line is max of 5-second discharge with 300 amps. And I have a load tester to see if it can actually pull that off. Now, first off, I already did a capacity test. And this battery with the CBA4 and fully charged to disconnect, which I took pictures of every single step, it got 102 amp hours. And I'll post those results right now. The curve looked good, there was no disconnect situation, and it worked as advertised, so that's great. Now this battery is designed to start internal combustion engines. That means it's being charged all the time and that the state of charge is very high. So before we do this load test, we're going to charge this to 100%. We're going to use a power supply set to 14.6 volts, which is the same number on the front of the battery. And for the last test I did yesterday, I never exceeded this voltage, and I ensured that we got a full charge with the power supply after I used a traditional battery charger. So let's hook it up. And this battery is mostly charged, so you're going to watch the current slowly drop to almost zero. Finally starting to drop. I think the balancing is done. Probably balancing another cell now if it has an active balancer. Typically I wouldn't wait this long, but I don't want to get sued, so we're going to ensure that we have a full disconnect. And look at that, 0 amps. Now, if you haven't seen my recent videos, this is my new load tester. It's purely resistive and it goes up to 600 amps. Now, because this is fully charged, I want to first test the 5-second discharge with 300 amps and see if it can pull it off. So we're going to flip these switches to get 300 amps. And with this fluke meter, we can actually graph it out over time with my phone. So if it disconnects really quickly, we'll be able to capture it. And we will monitor the voltage at the same time. So first I'm going to press record, and then we're going to flip this switch. 300 amps, 14, 15, 16, 3, 54. 55. All right, it's been over a minute. Oh, there we go. We got a disconnect. It actually works. Fantastic. And then it reset itself and it's drawing 285 amps again. And look at that, it disconnected again. And this is what you want it to do if you're trying to start an internal combustion engine. So let's turn it off. So we hit 300 amps and then it dropped. And then the first draw lasted a whole minute, but the second draw lasted only 20 seconds. So let's crank it over 300 amps and see if it will disconnect in under 5 seconds. But that was a good test. It did really well for that. And the overcurrent protection did trip, so that's awesome. So let's flip on another resistor and take a screenshot so I don't get sued. So let's record, and this will be over 300 amps, so it should disconnect much faster. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect! And look at that, it actually disconnected in 8 seconds. Now for the next test, we're gonna turn on all the resistors and try to capture the peak current that this thing can deliver. Because it says it's rated for 1000 amps. So we're gonna see if we can get at least 500 amps for at least 1 or 2 seconds. We should be able to measure the peak with this fluke meter because we'll be able to graph it out. So let's see what numbers we get. So we're gonna record, turn it on. Oh, look at that. Let's see if it will turn itself back on. Oh, there we go. Right at 1 minute. Uh-oh, we have some oscillations. It is turning on and off rapidly. Oh, it's still on. Holy cow, over 500 amps. So from the first peak to the second peak, that's a whole minute. Oh, there we go. That was less time this time. It's not very consistent. However, this BMS is trying to manage this. Maybe it's just using temperature. I don't think it's using current. All right, we're gonna turn it off. So that's a good sign. The overcurrent protection actually does work. Actually, I think I have a method of doing 1000 amps. Now this is a 1000 amp carbon pile load tester. We can connect it to this shunt and still measure everything with this meter. All right, here we go. 800 amps, no way. Holy cow, that was pretty good. Now that is pretty crazy. I've never had a 100 amp hour battery do that. So now it's set to inrush. Whew, 742, darn it, almost. I might have to charge this battery up. We've been doing a lot of testing now. Oh, that was more than it could measure. Holy cow, I've never had that before. That might have been 1000 amps. Yeah, I can't measure it. I think I'm exceeding this meter. No, it's 1000 amps. I guess we're exceeding 1000 amps. All right, let's use the Victron shunt. We've been doing a lot of testing, so let's charge this thing back up again. Now we are fully charged. Now the Victron shunt is rated for 2000 amps, but hopefully it can actually capture over 1000 amps for less than a second. So let's try this thing out. No! It's because I'm powering the shunt with the battery, and right when the battery disconnects, it turns off the shunt. So I don't think I'm going to be able to capture it. Oh, look at that! Oh, it hit 1000! Look at that! Maybe we should use these analog ones instead. Yep, look at that! It actually did it! That was 1000! How cool was that? Actually, we should connect it directly to the battery and not to the bus bar, now that we don't need to use the shunt. Nice, a little bit higher that time. Now for the last test, we're gonna do a continuous resistive load of 190 amps. That's 2,200 watts from a 100 amp hour battery, and that's pretty darn difficult. So 190 amps continuous, let's turn it on. 185. All right, first minute is done. It's actually doing pretty good. And those resistors are getting hot. You can feel them all the way over from here. And these resistors are at 594 degrees. Holy cow, 600 degrees. It's starting to smell bad. I need to get a fan on them. Not a single disconnect. 6 minutes long. So I'm actually impressed so far. That was incredible. That was actually the best 100 amp hour battery performance we've had with the load tester. So next we're gonna open it up and see what's inside. Now the build quality is not very impressive. First off, we have globs of solder, and this wire is damaged. It shouldn't be bent like this. This needs to be protected. This could cause a short circuit. And it's very close to this conductor right here, and this could cause a short. And this glue job is a joke. Like, what are you guys thinking? This is what you see on a budget battery, not an expensive battery or something made to start an engine. And on the other side, we have more globs of solder, and then we have temperature sensors. Let's take these out and see if they actually work. And why do they have two temperature sensors glued together? That's silly. You have multiple sensors assessing the temperature of the cells. You want to put one on one side of the pack and the other on the other side of the pack, or between the cells, not just slapped together with glue. Not very impressive. The lead time batteries, I would say, are better build quality than this any day. Maybe one temperature sensor's for cold and one's for hot. That would be completely illogical considering what type of sensor this is. But yeah, let's test it out. Let's see what happens. So first we're charging with 10 amps. We're gonna stick it in the ice. And these temperature sensors weren't even on the cells, they're on the fiber board. That's an insulator. That's not smart at all. Whoever designed this needs to go back to physics class. That sensor is frozen in there and we're not getting a disconnect. Doesn't seem to be working, so we're gonna put the second temperature sensor in as well. It does not seem to be working, guys. Look at that, it froze in there. So sometimes these BMSs are not programmed properly, so they need a colder temperature to trigger the low temp charging protection. So we're gonna use this instead. So now we'll see if they can do high temperature. There we go. So these are high temperature sensors only. Is this someone's hair? This is a hair. What the heck is this doing in here? This is a thick hair. This is probably some Chinese girl in a factory. That's pretty sad. Especially the chemicals that they have to breathe to make this garbage for us. Ridiculous. And after all that surge testing, none of these FETs look damaged at all. So this resistor bank, I think, is the shunt. And then these 4 resistors right here are for balancing, because I don't see an inductor anywhere to make an actual true active balancer. For that you need a converter circuit, but this does not have it. This is a passive dissipative balancer, which is fine, that's totally good. But the word usage on the front of the battery still had active in it. Whenever I see that, I think it's going to be an active balancer, but this is not. This is just a traditional, basic, boring balancer, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I prefer these over an active balancer, as many people know. Also, there's no conformal coating. Most of these BMSs have that, especially these days. Now, what I don't like is this is just slapped on here with 3 pieces of foam and a couple pieces of tape. That was acceptable a few years ago for budget batteries, but not today, especially at the price point that this battery is sold at. If you want an example of good engineering of a battery, check out a Roy-Pow in the internals. So for any engineers that want to redesign this, start from that. Now, considering the application, I would not trust this as a starter battery long term. I think you guys should check out Roy-Pow batteries and their internals and how they fixate the pieces together, how they wire it up, how they glue it, how they coat it. That's a good battery. Or you could compare this to a trolling motor battery like the one from Lead Time. Just the build quality in the design is a million times better than this. Now let's take the sticker on the side of these cells and calculate how many amp hours this pack actually is. So each pack in the series string has 9 cells by 2, so we're going to take 18 and multiply it by 7.2 that's listed on every cell. That gives us 129 amp hours, but our test was 102 amp hours. But the voltage curve in my test was good. So that means that these cells might actually be degraded if the capacity that's written on the side is true. And this battery's only been cycled a few times. I got it sent to me by a forum member, and it did pull the full capacity that it's rated for, but these cells are stating a different capacity. That's strange. And a lot of the complaints I've seen about the DCS batteries, especially using them for a starter battery, is fast degradation over time. So if you have already degraded cells and then you put them in a hot engine compartment, and you cycle them hard and you keep it at a high state of charge 24/7, it's not surprising that I'm encountering extreme degradation rates. Also, with this build quality, I mean, if it's a high vibration environment, you have a fiber board pushing up against this balance lead, this could get cut and it could shut down the BMS and you'll have a dead battery. So I wouldn't be surprised if you look up the reviews and some people get some dead on arrival packs, or if it gets shaken around a lot, this gets cut. Now, NOCO has lithium iron phosphate starting batteries, and quite a few other companies are selling them as well. Just like this Waze battery, and this one's rated for 800 cold cranking amps. And these ones even have a 5-year warranty. Waze is more of a budget battery, but they do work really well in all of our testing. So it is possible to make a battery that can start an internal combustion engine, and with the thermal stability of lithium iron phosphate, it should be able to handle those higher temperatures. But you have to have good cells that are matched from the factory, and having these re-sleeved ones with a different capacity than what's on the front is a little questionable, I would say. Now, they could be using a larger battery so they can have more current for starting the engine, right? But that doesn't explain my capacity test results, because we had a smooth curve, the BMS did not disconnect, and we had a curve all the way to low voltage disconnect. So that's the true capacity of these cells. But that's not the capacity that's written on the side. So that is very strange. I would love to hear what the company has to say for that. Maybe they re-sleeved them wrong. I don't know. Now, if these companies can do it, I think this company can do it as well. But I think you guys really need to redesign this pack and look at the competition, because this is pretty behind. You could do a lot better than this. Now, personally, would I put this under the hood of my car? Probably not. I would stick with lead acid, and I hate lead acid. One exception though, if you could run this inside the cab of the vehicle and then run some conductors into the engine bay, I think that would be fantastic. These lithium iron phosphate batteries are getting better and should be able to crank an engine no problem. But right now with this and putting it under the hood of my car here in Las Vegas with all this heat, I wouldn't. But it would be fun to try, but I don't want to get broken down when it's 120 degrees outside. So maybe during the winter I could try it out. I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't do it. Now, the surge testing was very impressive, but not that impressive, especially for the price. You can buy some lead time marine trolling batteries and slap them together in parallel with some duct tape, and you'll have the same surge rating as this thing. And you'll have more capacity with brand new cells that pull exactly what they're rated for, or at least what's on the side of the cell. Or if you want a large battery that can start engines, just go with a Roypow. Compared to the competition, I don't know why anyone would buy these. This is just a run-of-the-mill Chinese battery. All these companies in America and Australia, they're just slapping stickers. Of course, they have an engineering team and they go to China and they figure out what they need, but it's all made in China. It's still made in China. They get the parts from China. Now, when it comes to the court case, I do not have an opinion on that until I get more information. I've heard lots of crazy stories from both sides, so I'm not going to draw a conclusion at all. I'm here to review the actual product and how it works. I don't care about the company, the people, or any of that stuff. I'm here to do my job. Also, I don't have any sponsorship contracts with any of these companies. On my channel, if a battery does bad, then I can show you a better battery. If a battery does good, then I try to find a battery that's better, and I continue testing. There is no reason for any YouTuber to side with any of these companies, especially from China. Many of them are over-glorified sticker makers. They put their sticker on the battery, and they have a customer service and support. They might hire a couple engineers, but it's still all made in China, okay? We are so far behind when it comes to lithium iron phosphate manufacturing, it's crazy. So I'm not siding with America or Australia or any of these companies. What these American and Australian companies should do is make their own cells and stop crying about things. People always complain about China, but they don't do it themselves. Or they'll complain about slave labor, subsidies, or communism in general. The fact that the communists are able to produce more than us now at a cheaper price is awful. I hate that. I'm American. And the Americans and the Australians are just getting more and more fat, more weak, more slow, and they're not fixing problems. People are not seeing what the real issue is. It's us. We are the problem. Anyways, China's doing a very good job, and there's lots of products now for solar from China that are fantastic, high quality, and they beat everything that the American market is producing. Not only are they beating it, but they're doing it large volume. We are not doing that. We are failing miserably, and same with Australia. You guys are failing just as bad as us. Anyways, let's get my opinions out of it. The battery did good for the surge, but I don't like the build quality. And it's pretty fishy that you got this capacity figure on the side and that's not the capacity that we tested or what's on the front of the battery. You did do as advertised, and that's fantastic. I'm proud of you. But you can do better than this. Why would an electrical engineer allow this balance lead to be pushed up against fiberboard? Like, what? So yeah, do a better job. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.